And good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for taking the time to come and listen to us today. My name is Dr. Jennifer Dobbelstein, as Tracy has introduced me. And I would like to ask our elder, Donna Augustine, to introduce herself to you. And before doing so, though, I would like to present her with tobacco. And this is symbolic, and this is a practice that is well known and done to request that an elder come and share their knowledge and their wisdom with us today, and she's going to do that definitely. So Donna?
Yes, I'll accept. Thank you. Okay. So
Yes,
okay,
we'll start.
Hi everyone. Ningato wasisid mikjijebi deluisi. Migama was Scotchabanok Lewi, Mikjijuegadi. I just told you my language, which is Migama. My spirit name is Thunderbird Turtle Woman. I've got my beaded piece here, Thunderbird Turtle Woman. And I am Migama from what we call the northeast coast of what we call Turtle Island, North America. I actually live in Elsipogtog, First Nation here in New Brunswick. And so thank you, Jennifer, for offering the tobacco. The tobacco is, it's like a protocol when an elder is invited to do an opening prayer, closing prayer, do a cultural presentation, do a ceremony, tobacco is offered. And I've never smoked cigarettes in my life, but lots of tobacco is gifted to me. Tobacco is one of our 4 sacred medicines that has been around for thousands of years. And we believe that those 4 sacred medicines will be around for thousands of more years. That's sweetgrass, cedar, sage, and we smudge with those medicines individually or together. And then the offering is the tobacco. And so I'm going to, and it doesn't matter what type of tobacco, it could be a small one wrapped in red because red is very important. It's a protective color to us. So I'm just going to light a little bit of sage before we begin. And before any meeting, before anything important, we light a smudge, what we call a smudge. And I've got in my smudge bowl here. It's an abalone shell. So I'm going to, Jennifer was a little bit worried that the fire alarms would go off. So I'm just going to light very little. Take my ceremonial fan and I offer some to the Creator, Isolk, spirits of the 4 directions, Otchabanuk, Apkadesnuk, Etkasnuk, Oaknuk, and Mother Earth. Call the Earth our mother because Mother Earth sustains us, gives us everything that we need. I smudge with that, and it that smudge prepares, purifies your spirit and prepares you for something. So symbolically, I'm going to offer a little bit of this to all of you. I'm going to put that out. And I'm going to take that tobacco that was offered to me, and I'm going to hold my ceremonial fan, eagle fan, and ask that that we be guided today. It's very important before anything important that we do, even just a short little prayer. Agiso, gamadamawi, Eduardo Magisko, Depi Art, and Sokoi. Kiloko Guswa and Akidaso and Jugadi and Nudo de Gisco, Walali, which to Nago, Walali, Nego, Dandaria Quaviak. Ah, Chibanuk Chamishan Lioto Walaliak. Apkades Nuk Chamishan Lioto and Walaliak. Hard Kisnuksa with Kamiskishna E, Walaliak. Ah, or Adnuk Chamishan Lioto Walaliak. Akishinima Amigo, Walaligo, so give me a good chili machuan. Aho. Nogama, for we are all related. And as I'm doing my prayer, that was a short one. It occurred to me that you don't understand what I'm saying. And so when I think about that, I think about the children that attended residential school. The only language that they knew was their native language, individual languages across the land. And so when they attended residential school, the first thing that they did on the first day, they were punished for speaking their language. And they had no idea what was being told to them, and they couldn't understand them. And so it's very important that that we think about the children that attended residential school, and especially recently with all the children found in the unmarked graves. It's re-traumatized a lot of our people and the elders, but I can share a little bit more about that in a bit. I'd like to start this off with a song. It's called Drums. My dad used to call it his rebel song. It's a song about residential schools. And what would a child imagine a 6-year-old little boy, because that's how old my dad was when he was taken to residential school. Him and his two brothers, his older brother was 8, his younger brother was 4. And their parents had died. The uncle tried to take care of them and his wife, but the Indian agent came to pick them up, backed up by the RCMP, and told them that told the uncle that, they would put him in jail if they tried to stop them. So they were taken to this place, horrible institutions across the land, endless abuse. And so they never had a voice. They never had a voice. They couldn't speak up. They had no choice of anything. He was there until the age of 16. He ran away. He joined the army and lied about his age, joined the army, and immediately he was on the last part of World War II. So he would rather go to war than to remain in that place. And imagine already missing your parents that have died, missing your community, and to be placed there. So I tell people, so a child taken there, if they were allowed to speak, what would they say? So I have my drum. I've got some background music over here. Okay. From the Indian reservation, taken to the residential school. Well, they're going to educate me to the white man's golden rule. And I'm learning very quickly, for I've learned to be ashamed. And I come when they call Billy, though I've got an Indian name. And when they think that they've changed me, cut my hair to meet their needs, will they think I'm a whiter Indian, quarter blood, or just half breed? Let me tell you, Mr. Teacher, when you say you'll make me right in 500 years of fighting, not one Indian turned white, 'cause there are drums beyond the mountains, Indian drums that you can hear. There are drums beyond the mountain, and they're getting mighty near. Well, that I knew nothing. You brought me here to school, just another empty Indian, just America's first fool. But now I can tell you stories that are burnt and dried and old, and in the shadow of their telling walks a thunder, proud and bold. Lone pine and sequoia, handsome lake and Sitting Bull. There's Mangus, Colorado, with his sleeve sword and bow. Crazy Horse the legend, those who bid on Custer's soul, they are dead, yet they are living with the great Geronimo. And there are drums beyond the mountains, Indian drums that you can hear. There are drums beyond the mountain, and they're getting mighty near. Well, you may teach me this land's history, but we taught it to you first. We bid your hearts and bid your journeys. Broken treaties left us cursed. Even now, you have to cheat us. Even though you think us tame, in our losing, we found proudness. In your winning, you found shame. But there are drums beyond the mountains, Indian drums that you can hear. There are drums beyond the mountain, and they're getting mighty near, and they're getting mighty near. Oh, thank you, Eulalia. Sorry I made a few mistakes. I haven't sang that in a while.
Thank you, Donna. That was a
You're very-
beautiful
You're very welcome.
sharing of culture with everybody, and I thank you.
You're welcome.
So I'm going to share the slideshow, but I'd like Donna to keep talking a little bit about
Okay.
her community of Elsipogtog, and then we'll get into the next part. Okay. Arrow. Sorry, would you just be 1 minute here? Thank goodness Haley's here for tech support. Yeah, okay.
While they're doing that, can I just show you our logo really quickly?
Yes.
Okay, while they're getting ready, it's here behind us. And it says Eimekdandegleyothiag, which means home for life, but it's also, it could mean we are living where we're from. So home for life. And I just wanted to show you very quickly how appreciative we are of Jen and Haley. And this is a picture that was taken. I think this is at when they gathered.
Mhm.
This is some of the group of elders and Jen and Haley. My daughter Katrina is in the back. And these are the people that have been working on this project. So there's more than one of us. There's many of us. So I'm very, very grateful to be here today.
I'm glad to have you, Donna.
And I'll explain a little bit of this.
Yeah,
and then
go
my
right
next-
ahead.
Oh, you want me to explain it now?
May as
Okay.
well, yeah.
So just, I know that there's something written about this, but I always go off script anyway. But I know my culture. I've been doing ceremonies. I'll be 70 years old in a couple of months. And I've been conducting ceremonies since I was 22 years old. I'm really versed not only in our culture as Mi'kmaq, but other tribes as well. And so the whole circle itself, the circle is very important to our people. It represents that there's no beginning, there's no end, and that everyone within that circle has value. Everyone has worth. So all of our ceremonies are based in a circle. Our drum is a circle. The sun and moon are a circle. So that's very important. And then this teepee or the wigwam, it's where our ancestors lived. And so home for life for us, we want it to be to have our own say, our perspective as the first people of this land and what's important to us. The bear is so symbolic. The bear represents the medicine. It's the bear that digs the roots. And in our ceremonies, especially in the sweat lodge ceremonies, we call upon the spirit of the bear when people need healing, when people are sick. The eagle is very important to us, very symbolic. And the eagle flies highest to the creator. There is no barrier between the eagle and the creator. So we see the eagle as our messenger. And the teaching of the eagle is love. And down below, we've got the green leaf and the feather here, the eagle feather. The green leaf also represents Mother Earth, but it could also represent the trees because we believe that everything is connected and everything has a spirit. If we were to cut those trees, we wouldn't have any oxygen to breathe. If we were in that water, if we were to put chemicals into that water, we wouldn't have any good water, safe water to drink. It would kill all the fish. And so anyway, just to let you know a little bit of what this symbol means, and it's very important to us. It was designed by our own elders, so very proud of that fact.
Mhm.
So,
Good. Okay. Thank you, Donna. We'll move on and just look at the overview that's on your screen now and talk about our objective of our work, the 3 milestones in this project. The findings we're going to talk about by providing quotes from the elders that participated in the project. We'll talk briefly about 2 new programs that we developed and implemented and evaluated. And then we'll talk a moment about the assessment tool that can be used to go to any other First Nation community in Canada and see how do they fare in terms of keeping their elders home for life. We'll talk about the impact our work has had and some of the next steps, and then we'll be glad to take your questions. So let's go. The objective of this research study was to explore the needs of the elders living at Elsipogtog First Nation. I will say that I was invited to come to the community to do this important work by Eva Sock, who is a lady that I admire a lot. She is the Director of Primary Care at the Elsipogtog Health and Wellness Center, and she is the only Indigenous person representing all Indigenous people on the New Brunswick Health Council. So we're very proud of the work she's done in her community and very honored that she asked me to come and help with this work and facilitate it. It's the best way to say it.
and of course, our people fell in love with Jennifer right away. I just want to say that.
It's mutual. I think you can probably tell that. The milestones in this study, number 1, conduct a research study. And we did that. We developed and implemented new programs based on the research findings. We couldn't do everything, but we picked the priority areas to focus on and develop and test the Home for Life assessment tool, which is just being completed now. So conducting the research, we did it differently than you might think. We used a community-based research team. We educated elders and also younger people, the younger generation that are in university that are on our team. And we educated them about research, about qualitative research, about focused ethnography. And we got the right people, the elders, asking the right questions in the right way to the right people in the right language. So that made us receive rich data and stories, and it made a very safe environment for the elders. They didn't have to see myself sitting at a desk with a pen ready to ask them things in English. English is not the first language of the elders. Most elders, it's Mi'kmaq. Am I right?
Yes.
Yeah. So we wanted to explore and understand, and most importantly, we wanted to act on the findings. So speaking of the findings, Donna's going to take us through some quotes from elders in her own community.
Okay. So, some of the findings of the study was, this is some of the direct quotes from the elders. Meals on Wheels will be nice for people living alone who cannot cook for themselves. The food bank wasn't properly managed. It could have helped us more because we are on a limited income. And then some said the Meals on Wheels, we should have it here.
That was food insecurity.
Right?
Yeah.
And then the next was housing, poor housing conditions. Okay, I'll just read it from here. So the house is pretty old and needs some repairs. Cabinets needs repairs. Laundry room was downstairs and the bathroom is too small. And as you know, the elders have a hard time going back and forth upstairs. We need help. Another one said, we need help with maintenance, stuff I can't do anymore by myself. I have to rely on someone else, even cleaning the yard. And then another one said, to continue to live my own home, I need home maintenance, wide doors, a ramp, and a walk-in shower. Loneliness. This was a very important one. No one visits, no one cares to visit or check up on me. I am very lonely. I miss my mom, my dad, and my late spouse. Everything was okay when they were all here. I just want to say on that note that as Indigenous people, we are very family oriented and we are very community oriented. That's why COVID was so doubly hard on us. The next one says the company of young people would be nice, someone to talk to. But before we switch to the next slide, when we talk about loneliness, I just want to say that this was the driving force to have a home within our own community. Because when you take an elder outside of the community, first of all, they get lonely for their people. They get lonely for the food that they're used to. They get lonely. They miss the language, and so when you take them out of the community, it's almost like a part of them dies. They get it's like their spirit. It's like almost they die of loneliness. Mm-hmm. So then the next one, fear, safety, and security. So one said, I am scared of strange men and keep my door locked at all times. I keep the curtain closed at all times, scared that someone is peeking in at night. And I just want to tell you that things have changed, as you know, because when I was growing up, the elders didn't have to worry that much because there was no big problem of drugs, you know, and now that's really prevalent everywhere. So some days I get scared and I don't want to go anywhere alone. I am worried about everything, worried about children, my children, grandchildren. I pray for the teenagers because of drugs and alcohol. I am scared of someone coming in at night when I am alone. So the lack of continuum, long-term care supportive living center. Would love to see our own nursing home on the reserve or maybe an assisted living home. It will be nice if my grandchildren can walk and come visit with me and talk to me in my language. Mm-hmm. That's very important, yes. I would want to be in a nursing home. I would love it if we had it here, if we had enough trained workers and create jobs. So on that job, that would be job creation, mm-hmm. right, and training. You can't stay home when you are sick. You need nursing care, need to get fed and medicine. There are talks about a home here, but I don't believe them. When you are sitting home alone, that's not a picnic. Nobody will look after you. And by the way, when it says there are talks about a home here, but I don't believe them, I just want to say that because of the past harms inflicted on Native people, there's not a lot of trust, and especially the ones that went to residential school. And so when you take these very same elders that were at residential schools and they had no say about anything, it's hard for them to trust. And so it's very important that they don't get re-traumatized again because they'll be put into another institution far away from home. Even though it could be in town, to them, it's still far away from home. If we had a nursing home here, we can speak our own language and our own people can take care of me. I would move into a home. On that note, we would have our food, the food that we're used to. If we had a home in Elsipogtog, make a room where smudge can be lit, do pipe ceremonies, where ceremonial people can come and do their ceremonies. And I want to say on that note that our culture has made a huge comeback due to residential school assimilation and colonization. There was a time that we were not allowed to practice our ways. And there was a ban, and actually people were killed for practicing their ceremonies. So there was a big gap. But now our culture has made a huge comeback, and our powwows are back, our ceremonies are back. But also at the same time, we still highly respect the ones that still believe in the Catholic religion. Mm-hmm. In this place, we're going to respect both. Every way that people believe is important to honor that.
Thanks, Donna. Okay, we'll look for a moment at the programs that we decided to implement in the community. Just quickly, 2 programs that were priority. And then I'll talk a little bit about what Donna was just talking about on the last finding, which is a facility or a long-term care organization in the community. We'll touch on that. The Meals to Go program is kind of a curbside pickup program where meals were prepared at CC's Entertainment Center by someone from the community. And she worked with the dietitian at the health center to develop a meal plan and tried to provide healthy meals for the people in the community. We fed 70 people twice a week on Tuesday and Thursdays, and either the elders or their family members picked up the meals, and we did an evaluation of the program looking at food quality, temperature, variety, things like that. So we did learn a few lessons, and if we were to continue this program, we would implement a few additional things based on our evaluation. The second program we called Eva's Vision, after Eva Sock, of course, who wanted education programs on various topics to help fill the gap, because there isn't a continuum of long-term care. There aren't a lot of services for elders in the community. It's not the same as our opportunities. And I have told people in other talks that my mom, who's 84, lives in her own home in Fredericton, and she would have access to 13 services to allow her to live home for life. At Elsipogtog, an elder in the same situation would have access to 3 of those services. So that's inequitable, and it's causing some of the health disparities that we know exist. So in the meantime, until we get a facility and or programming that's needed, we are trying to implement education programs. So we have looked at Indigenous perspectives on dementia, which are very, very different than our perspectives on dementia. And we have developed an Indigenous-based program to help people in the community look after family members and friends with dementia, because that issue is just starting to surface in the First Nations now, where we've been dealing with it for longer. The other program is on end-of-life support care for caregivers, family caregivers. So if people don't want to go to the hospital or leave the community at the time of the end of life, they can, there's education now that can be provided so that family members aren't so afraid. And so they know the role of extramural and hospice in Moncton and the health center, but they also know what things they can do at home. So that's just a quick overview on those things. You may have further questions. Let's move on to the assessment tool. This is something that will help scale our work up potentially across Canada. We have developed an evidence-based tool that has 5 components to it. There are 5 questions on each component, and we have a 3-point Likert scale that measures the response. We've implemented this for one time. We're going to do a retest to validate the tool in the coming weeks. And then we will do an analysis on the results. And if the tool is valid, it should be able to be used in other communities to do an assessment. Everything starts with assessment before planning and implementing things and evaluating. We need the assessment to know, where do communities stand? We know where Elsipogtog stands. What about Tobique? What about Woodstock First Nation? What about St. Mary's? You know, all of the First Nations need to have an assessment done. And that takes us to the next slide. We'll look at impacts. So the impacts of the work we've done, just quickly, we've had co-production of the research. I haven't done the research. I have helped others do the research that are from the community. And that means that the findings are not new to them. They feel them, they've heard them. Clear evidence-based picture of the elders' needs. We went into this work needing to know that. We found out that mental wellness programs are needed for elders, and that there's a big priority on food security and caregiver education. We found that Home for Life now has 3 meanings. In the beginning, it just meant, let's try and keep elders home for life. Then the second meaning was home for life. Staying home is life-giving. And then the third meaning is home for life in my community. Don't move me anywhere else. I don't fit anywhere else. I need to stay home. So whether it's in a house in the community or in a supportive living environment. And we have taken steps because of the changing demographics to apply for a large grant to build not a nursing home, but an Indigenous long-term care lodge in the community that would have various levels of care in one facility. It wouldn't be a nursing home. It would be a culturally appropriate assessment to get in to this type of facility. And it would be a facility that meets the guidelines that are coming out from the Assembly of First Nations. They've just put out a great document
Mm.
called Seven Generations Continuum of Care. And in that document, they identify characteristics for culturally appropriate long-term care. And so we are working with them and working with Indigenous Service Canada in ways to further this work. So what's next? We would like to develop a train the trainer program to teach Indigenous healthcare providers in New Brunswick First Nations to use the Home for Life assessment tool. So instead of us doing it, we would like to teach other people that are working in the communities or in the community health centers to use the tool in their own communities. They will have success with that. They can do that if we give them a little bit of education up front. And we can no longer ignore the long-term care needs of Indigenous elders. They must age in place in their own communities. We must build a continuum of culturally sensitive long-term care. And they need equitable, dignified, and healthy aging. So the biggest line in this presentation is that the elders have spoken. The take-home message is, it's one thing to identify the needs and issues facing the elders and to implement programs, but the most important thing is to see, identify, and to state the larger issue, which is there is not a continuum of care for people. There's not a system of care that works for people. They cannot be re-traumatized by going into a nursing home down the road outside the community. It's not far, but it's very far to go. And so we need culturally sensitive continuum of long-term care, and we know how to do it, and the time is right to do it now, and it's the right thing to do now. I just want to share with you one quick thing I wrote on my knitting pattern this morning that Phil Fontaine, the past chief of the Assembly of First Nations, is in Rome right now with the delegation of Indigenous people. And he said this is a go forward moment. So think of that. We have to change our thinking. And the old way that we've done for Indigenous people in long-term care, it's not the right way, and now is the time to do that. So with that, we thank you for your attention. I'm not sure what the time is. We probably went over, but
I'd like to just add a few things.
No, go ahead.
First of all, I just want to say that not just here, but all the way across the board, all the way in North America, United States and Canada, Indigenous people, we have a lot of respect for elders. The elders carry that knowledge. They're knowledge keepers, the wisdom. They provide unconditional love. They carry the language. And so elders are highly regarded, and they've never been asked. And under United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People, it says that you have to have free, prior, and informed consent. And so the Indigenous people of this land were never involved with a lot of things. They were not part of the decision-making process. And so this is such great hope, and especially now that we're in a time of reconciliation. What can we do now? Because a lot of those elders, as mentioned, went to residential school, and that's why they don't have a lot of trust, and they don't want to go into another facility outside the home. They'll be re-traumatized. I know that my daughter took gerontology at university because of, for many reasons, but there was one particular elder from our community, and they took him to this home. Well, he was starting to forget people and get really forgetful. Then he forgot how to speak the English language completely. He couldn't understand it. He couldn't speak it. He went totally back to speaking Mi'kmaq only. So can you imagine in that nursing home, they couldn't understand him and he couldn't understand them. He didn't have his food, the food that he's used to. He didn't have his family around him, which is our way. And so, our home within our community for life, it also means because if they're moved away, I remember one time when my mom, she's passed away now, and they were going to put her in an old age home. And in our ways, we're matriarchal, the women make the decisions. And so, and I had the last say, and I said, no, if you put my mom and my mother in an old age home, you might be able to keep her alive longer, physically, but it's going to kill her spirit, really. She will die of loneliness in there. She'll wonder how come my children, my community doesn't care about me. And the way we see it, when we were young, when we were helpless. The elders took care of us. So now it's time for us to take care of the elders. And I just want to add that we have a fast-moving, aging population. There's going to be a lot of elders that need this care. So I just want to add that. Thank you.
Yep.